Hey everyone, I'm Red, and today I'm going to be ranking all 6 Jurassic Park movies from worst to best. I seen the new one a few hours ago as of my recording, and I won't be including any big spoilers for the new one, but I will giving my reasons for its placement on the list. So let's see how these two trilogies line up. Before I start, let me say that as a kid I was a huge fan of this franchise, and the original was my most watched movie as a child. There is a ton of nostalgia from when I was younger. So let's get the rankings started. Coming in last place is Jurassic Park Fallen Kingdom. I've seen this movie twice and it was even worse the second time. The list of negatives are numerous, but I suppose we can start with some positives. Its opening scene is great with the giant fish dinosaur from Jurassic World escaping into the open world, and the scene has a lot of tension, even though it has no payoff in this movie or the next one, which is so disappointing. We could have at least seen the payoff to the beach wave cliffhanger at the end of Kingdom. Claire's character progression was a nice touch. Her character became a lot more human and empathetic. It did a good job of making me actually care about the dinosaurs. I teared up when the Brachiosaurus was left on the island to die. There's some pretty funny scenes scattered throughout, but nothing too hilarious. It's got a cool horror vibe towards the end, though I wish they would have leaned more into it. And the ending was pretty interesting setup for the future, which they did kind of pay off on in their own way in the next movie. I wish they would have did a little bit more with it though. The action is pretty solid, but that about does it for the positives. This movie is full of plot holes, and I'll have to expand on that in a future video because it would take way too long to do right now. But just to list a few, the park being built on a volcano is so stupid. The company trying to make money cloning dinosaurs when they could have just done it with humans years ago. The dumb villains drove me nuts, and it sucked that there wasn't any satisfying comeuppance to their storyline. The music felt like a shell of the previous movies. The setting just was kind of dumb, and it didn't lend itself well to the series. I don't know why we're just running around a house. Chris Pratt's character flip-flopping ideologies and changing completely was super annoying. Claire's character progression actually made sense. His was idiotic. He now dislikes dinosaurs and animals and has no sympathy for if they live or die. So stupid. Ian Malcolm was totally wasted and was only used for basically the trailers. That was every scene in the movie. It was only used to sell tickets, which is very frustrating. At least in the new one, they did actually use the characters they showed in the trailer, which is satisfying. You can't tease me with something and not show it. The little girl being a clone twist was not interesting, and it was telegraphed, and I called it right away. Basically, this movie was just not very good. I tried to get into it, but I just couldn't get invested in what was happening from the beginning, and it lacked any heart that the franchise once had. In 5th place is Jurassic Park 3. Even as a kid, I walked out of the theater like this movie was not very good. I was so disappointed and bored throughout. This movie had a lot more heart but lacked the likable characters and fun, but that doesn't mean it's completely devoid of anything good. The cage sequence with the flying dinosaurs was pretty great, and something fun and new to the franchise that they'd always kind of teased up to that point. The meta story beat bringing back Alan Grant was pretty funny, and they made it feel pretty natural. And we got some good action from the dinos, and the raptors had some pretty fun things to do. They expanded on them a little bit, which was interesting. I think the kid character was great, surviving on his own that long. Anybody that can do that you gotta give him some respect. The new big bad dino was really cool, and even though he killed the T-Rex so easily, that will forever be a bummer. You can kill him, but you gotta give him some respect. The Rain River scene was really well done. Bringing back Alan Grant felt natural, but I suppose we got to get into some negatives. This movie has probably the silliest moment of the whole series with the talking velociraptors and the dream sequence. Billy being a parachute expert was absolutely ridiculous. Tia Leone's character was probably the worst character in the whole franchise. I can still hear her scream in my head, "Oh my God." William H. Macy's greatness was wasted. It lacked a real human villain, which is a constant theme throughout every other movie. I don't know why they just kind of skipped out on it this time. It's not like they paid any more respect to the dinosaurs. It was just kind of bland. It has the weakest characters in the whole franchise. It made me angry Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler weren't together anymore, and I'm so glad they kind of redeemed that in the new one. The opening scene makes no sense with the people on the boat disappearing. The movie doesn't have the biggest plot holes, especially compared to some of the other movies, but it's just kind of bland and unmemorable in my opinion. Before I jump into my top 4, please drop your own rankings down below and consider liking and subscribing. It would really mean and help me out a lot. Thank you. In 4th place is Jurassic World. I have very mixed feelings about this movie. I really want to like it, but I just can't get over how ridiculous the franchise went. And even though the 3rd movie started to definitely signal lack in quality, Jurassic World had a chance to start over and create something truly epic. And though this movie is epic in its own ways, it's truly, absolutely dumb at points. But let's get to some positives. The dinosaurs in this movie create the biggest dynamic emotional response, and I was rooting for them and felt bad when they died or failed. It honestly had me tearing up at points, and any movie that can do that gets some real respect in my books. The action is pretty solid with some cool set pieces. The pterodactyls breaking out and causing chaos, all the scenes of the dinosaurs fighting each other were great and maybe at its best in the whole franchise. The big fight at the end between the dinosaurs was awesome. The new park looked really cool, and I actually wanted to go there on vacation. It was well realized. A lot of the human characters are fun, including Nick from New Girl, Owen Grady's character. The 2 kids aren't too bad, and they have some decent moments, but there are so many stupid people in this movie. It makes me want to tear my hair out. I'm going crazy. I like the dinosaurs way more than pretty much any human in this movie, and I feel like you should at least like one human more than the dinosaur. I even respected Blue more than Chris Pratt's character. Like, why? Do a better job. In the new one, this was done way better in my opinion. And when you combine dumb characters with a dumb story full of plot holes, it combines for a mess. I don't like it. This video would be way too long if I listed them all. You have a giant fish dinosaur jumping out of its cage at the end. He could have done that at any time and killed how many people? The horrible security at this billion-trillion-dollar park, outrunning a T-Rex in heels. Claire's character was so annoying. I hated that the movie tried to make her a hero at the end. The plot of turning raptors into military weapons had me rolling my eyes so hard. Ugh. Next. In 3rd place is Jurassic Park Dominion. This movie was extremely hard to place. I feel like it could be one of those films that could shift and go up or down on this list in the future, as it has a ton of positives and negatives. I was extremely nervous as this film started. The premise was pretty solid leading off the cliffhanger of the last film, and the opening exposition dump was nice, and it kind of answered some questions that I had. The plot with the bugs, though interesting, was a little obvious on where it was going, and though it didn't waste the legacy characters involved, it was just kind of bland and foreseen. And I could say the same about the plot with Blue, Beta, Claire, Owen, and the little girl, Macy. Chasing her down just felt a little unbelievable, and I feel like it could have been done a lot better. The first half of this movie didn't have me hooked, but as the film went on, I started to really get into it, and by the end, I was having so much fun. As soon as the legacy characters meet up with the new ones, the movie just kind of rocket ships. There are a ton of new and old dinosaurs in this movie that they bring back, and they are a highlight of the film. And unlike the previous 2 movies, the cast in the movie is actually enjoyable, and I don't want to see them fail or get eaten. Owen, Claire, and Macy's characters are all very improved over the previous movies. And Alan Grant, Ellie Sattler, and Ian Malcolm are all super likable and fun to watch. Especially Ian Malcolm, he had me smiling ear to ear in most of the scenes he was in. Even the side characters are fun in this movie. The pilot and the twist bad guy were a lot of fun. I feel like they even went meta with the human villain, CEO. He was done completely as a comedy character in my mind, such a dork with a Dr. Evil plot, basically. But he wasn't taken seriously like the previous two Jurassic World movies. He was cheesy and they knew it, and he got what was coming to him in a satisfying and really funny way. This is the first movie in this trilogy where I like the humans more than the dinosaurs, and boy, was that refreshing. The action was among the best in the series, even though I was internally screaming, move and run when the characters would just casually walk towards the danger coming at them with no fight or flight response. There's a ton of fan service, which I really appreciated, and they were lacking on that, especially in the last movie. Normally it would be too much in a movie, but this trilogy had kind of set itself up and it was way overdue for it. But the movie ended on an okay note. It felt like it could be the end of this trilogy chapter, or it could kind of still be open to more possibilities and another movie, which is kind of nice, I guess. They upped their game on the practical effects, and that was really nice to see. They actually put in some work. It was surprisingly funny, like I said previously, with Ian Malcolm. And some of the other characters, it just had brought a levity to the film that was nice to see. It was kind of disappointing what they did with the dinosaurs being out in this open world, but I can roll with it, I guess. They explained it well enough. The plot, especially the first half, wasn't the greatest. It had some silly, dumb moments, but they calmed down with the massive plot holes, especially compared to the previous two. They're still there, but they seemed a lot more acceptable in this film. Its metatone worked, and it kind of relaxed me into it and not being so judgmental. I'm sure on rewatch I'll start screaming, but I'm staying optimistic for now for some reason. The movie kind of wasted its big new dinosaur in the apex predator. They bring back the stupid dino laser pointer that they introduced. That is the dumbest thing in the world. The side plot in the black market, though a really cool setting and interesting, just how we got there was dumb. I was not into it. I was so bored. Let's move on. Why is the company transporting this expensive $1 trillion thing through this shady system? But all in all, it seemed like it was a lot more satisfying to watch than the other movies. I wasn't constantly tearing my hair out and going, why? So that's why it's number 3 on my list. In second is Lost World: Jurassic Park. I had this movie on repeat with the original so often as a kid, so there is a lot of nostalgia. And as much hate as people give this movie, I don't think it's all deserved. There are some really great moments throughout with a pretty good story. The acting is solid, there's some nice character arcs. This movie still had the grounded, realistic, serious vibe that I want in my Jurassic movies. Even the T-Rex in the city sequence was cool, and honestly, I wish we would have got more of that in the 2022 movie. You have the RV scene, the Velociraptor chase, so many cool moments in this movie, along with what I think are the best death scenes in the whole series. The scene with the compies chasing and wearing down the hunter is great. All the villains in this movie have a great comeuppance. The baby dinosaur scene getting his revenge at the end had me cheering. This movie had multiple human villains, and they all kind of balanced and worked well together, including the lead hunter character who turned into an kind of an anti-hero villain because the other surviving villains were just so horrible and despicable. I ended up kind of liking him a little bit, which is weird. This movie had the best balance between human and dinosaur characters as well. I feel like we could relate and like them on both sides. The dinosaurs all still look great. The music is wonderful. People like to complain about Ian Malcolm's character being so different, but if you actually look at his character arc, it makes a lot of sense. And after seeing the new one, I guess his personality just kind of jumps around and shifts according to what situation he's in, so whatever. They made it make sense. The child character was pretty well done and believable. I actually liked her, even though it was kind of set up in the first movie that she shouldn't exist. This movie has a ton of positives in my book, which is why it's so high. But it definitely does have some issues. There's some weird plot holes that don't make sense. The new island popping up that was never mentioned. As I said, Ian Malcolm's kid. And especially her doing gymnastics to defeat the Velociraptor. The movies are probably a little long, but it moves pretty swiftly, and at no point am I ever really bored. Maybe it's the nostalgia on this pick, but it's still my number 2 in my pick. We'll have to see. Maybe I'll do a video in like a year and see if it changes. So that means coming in first place is still the original Jurassic Park. No surprise. Like I said, I don't know what can really be said. This movie is fucking damn near perfect. Everything about it. The setting, memorable, evil, likable characters, dinos, music, action, story, effects, character arcs. There's nothing that can really be said that is awful about this movie. Everything I just mentioned, it's at its best in this whole franchise. Everything about it is great. It's how you make a movie. It's how great filmmaking is done. So good luck topping this one in the future. I'll be doing a much more long-form discussion on this with Lumi in a future video because these movies inspire so much controversy and opinions that we could talk about these all day. So if you want to see more Jurassic Park videos or any more videos or rankings, subscribe, comment down below, let me know. We would really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. If you're still sticking around to this point, have a good one, everybody.